You think you know Pennsylvania, a state built on steel, coal, and a proud spirit of working-class resilience. But step away from the gleaming skyline of downtown Philadelphia, past the corridors of historic colleges and well-preserved stadiums, and the picture begins to crack. This isn't a crisis far away, it's happening right out of your sight. Have you ever walked past someone curled up on a bench and wondered what their story was? Have you ever thought, could I be like that? At Rome Kind, we're going deep into the streets of Pennsylvania to uncover the hidden realities that no one wants to face. This isn't a story of failure. This is a cautionary tale, and it starts right here. Number 1. Home becomes a luxury. By the year 2025, Pennsylvania is facing a crisis that may seem distant, until it's not. Across the state, more than 15,400 people are living without stable housing. In Philadelphia alone, over 4,800 individuals seek shelter every night. Many are turned away simply because there's no space left. You may walk past them on your daily commute, beneath bridges, tucked along building walls, or quietly sitting on park benches. But these aren't isolated stories. They're part of a system under pressure. According to the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania, shelters now operate at 98% capacity. And while demand continues to rise, transitional housing resources have steadily declined. Here's the unsettling truth. Many of those unhoused were recently employed. The National Alliance to End Homelessness reports that nearly 1 in 3 people experiencing housing instability in Pennsylvania held stable jobs just a few years ago. It's not a failure of character. It's a system that no longer provides a safety net when life takes an unexpected turn. Dr. Evelyn Parker, an urban policy analyst at the University of Pennsylvania, puts it plainly. When working families spend over 50% of their income just to keep a roof overhead, there's no room for emergencies. One setback, and the foundation collapses. Add to that the rising cost of living. The Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms a 2.9% rise in consumer prices in the Philadelphia region over the past year, with housing costs jumping by 4.6%, surpassing the national average. You feel it in your grocery bill, your rent check, your daily choices. What's happening in Pennsylvania is not just a housing crisis, it's a warning that the line between stability and struggle is thinner than most think. When shelter becomes a privilege, not a right, ask yourself, how close are you to that edge? The numbers are real, but it's what you choose to do with that truth that matters. Number 2. Systems crumbling, leaving lives behind. You might think that housing instability is just an abstract term, but when nearly 15,000 people across Pennsylvania lack stable housing, it becomes a very real and troubling situation. At the city's train stations, libraries, and underpasses, people gather nightly, no longer waiting for buses or books, but for shelter that may never come. These aren't just statistics. They are your former co-workers, your neighbors, your veterans. You pass them by at the train station, in libraries, or under the overpasses. Older individuals, former factory workers, veterans, now huddling in public spaces instead of the homes they once had. Makeshift blankets, tarps, and cardboard boxes on street corners are no longer exceptions. They've become part of the city landscape. I used to build this city. Now I sleep right under its feet, shared an elderly man, a former factory worker, with a sorrowful tone. The current shelters reflect a social support system that has become overwhelmed and can no longer offer comprehensive protection. When you read the statistics, you see somewhere the lost hope, the dream shattered within the shell of comfort. So what is the system doing when the very people who helped build it now have to sleep on the streets? Will we turn our backs when those who once contributed no longer have a place to shelter? In the year 2025, data shows that the number of people seeking shelter has increased, but a significant portion still never gets into a shelter. They exist unrecorded. In comparison to Las Vegas, where shelter spaces are still increasing, but the homeless population has not decreased. This is not just a number. It's the system facing challenges. Look directly into the dark corners, into the living numbers, the faces, the uncertain sleeps. To make you see that, if we do not act, you and the community, those numbers will only rise. Number 3. Elderly forgotten, left to fade away. In many cities across the United States, each park bench, corner of train stations, and fences around public buildings are gradually becoming places for overnight rest for those who once were the backbone of the workforce, the elderly who helped build modern-day America. According to the latest report from the National Institute of Social Policy, dated April 2025, the number of older adults without stable housing has increased by more than 23% in just 2 years. They didn't lose everything because of a major shock, but because of a series of small misfortunes. Skyrocketing rent, an expensive prescription, a part-time job cut. These seemingly minor issues have led them to fall through the cracks of the system, quietly, unnoticed. "I never thought I'd have to choose between a hot meal or a doctor's appointment," said Linda E., 69 years old, who worked as a librarian for over 30 years while knitting under an overpass in Pennsylvania. Just 1 month of financial imbalance, and many cannot afford rent. They move from a small apartment to sleeping in their car. When the car is gone, they end up under the shelter of a public library, once a symbol of knowledge, now a place of refuge. The gap between stability and collapse is growing shorter. A financially stable person with just one health crisis or an unpaid bill can easily fall into homelessness. Have you ever passed by an older adult sitting still at a bus stop and thought they were just waiting for someone? Have you ever wondered, are they waiting, or do they have nowhere else to go? Do you think our older adults deserve better? Comment with respect if you believe we need to do more for them. Keep watching. The next part will show how this issue affects us all. Number 4. Philadelphia's legacy of broken promises. Philadelphia, the place where the Liberty Bell once rang, where the Declaration of Independence was born, and where top universities like Penn and Temple bring together the brightest minds. A symbol of heritage, a heart of civilization. However, just a few blocks away from the historic center, another reality chokes us. The sidewalks no longer echo with the footsteps of students, but with the sound of blankets scraping against cold concrete. The bus station is no longer a place for arrivals and departures, but a shelter for the night. The park, once a community space, now quietly becomes an unwanted home. Kensington Avenue, once a vital traffic corridor, is now considered the gray area of Philadelphia. The old train station is used as a resting place, and the alleyways behind the public library are filled with tarps, cardboard boxes, and used needles. Many volunteers admit they avoid entering this area after 7 o'clock in the evening due to safety concerns. Mr. Marcus D., 67 years old, a former bus driver, shared, "I used to drive people to work every morning. Now I sleep right at that bus station, but no one gets on the bus anymore." As of the beginning of the year 2025, according to data from the Philadelphia Office of Homeless Services, the city reported over 4,300 homeless individuals, and nearly 1,000 of them have no place to sleep overnight, an increase of nearly 40% in just 1 year. Although the support budget has surpassed $88 million, charity groups report that many areas are inaccessible at night due to a lack of personnel and security. So, what is truly breaking down? How can a center of civilization, a symbol of democratic history, have streets where even the community that supports them hesitates to stop? When the glorious memories survive in museums, but real people are collapsing in the streets, perhaps we need more than just signs that read National Heritage. Number 5. Survival costs more than you can afford. From the year 2020 to 2025, the state of Pennsylvania witnessed an average increase of 60% in the cost of essential items, significantly higher than the national average, especially in cities such as Philadelphia and Allentown. A gallon of milk now retails for around $5. A simple breakfast at a local diner has surpassed $12, while a dozen eggs has risen from $1.99 to $5 to $6. Meanwhile, the income of many working-class families and elderly people has only increased by less than 20%, widening the gap even further. I have to pay around $1,400 a month for food, medication, and transportation, not including rent, shared Helen, a 72-year-old resident of suburban Philadelphia. Now, I have to choose a meal or a doctor's appointment. A simple comparison: the price of essential items has tripled compared to income. As a result, many people living on fixed incomes are forced to make harsh survival choices. Information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, April 2025, shows that the Consumer Price Index, CPI, in the Philadelphia area increased by 2.9% annually, stronger than the national average of 2.3%. Among these, housing costs rose by 4.6% over the year. The gap continues to widen, with $1,200 to $1,500 per month just to cover basic expenses. Financial stability becomes fragile. So the question arises, when costs increase so much, does a job still hold enough value to ensure a sustainable life? Even at the most basic level, when everything becomes so expensive, people no longer talk about saving more. They have to choose: skip breakfast or skip the doctor's appointment. A friend from yesterday might be the one needing to make that choice tomorrow. Number 6. No home, no hope. The cost of renting a one-bedroom apartment in Philadelphia currently hovers around $1,520 per month. While it has seen a slight decrease, it remains significantly above the recommended safe spending threshold, no more than 30% of one's income. In cities like Pittsburgh and Harrisburg, the transformation of older buildings into upscale apartments has only increased the cost of housing. In Pennsylvania, more than 45% of renters are spending more than 50% of their income just on rent, creating an alarming financial strain. They are just one unexpected event away, such as job loss or an unexpected bill, from the risk of losing their homes. Affordable housing is in short supply. Only 39 affordable units exist for every 100 low-income households. This results in more than half of low-income residents being unable to secure stable housing, leading to serious consequences: overcrowded shelters. Many individuals are forced to live in their cars, stay with friends, or struggle through the night without a safe place to rest. "I'm on the streets, waiting for a shelter, with no idea where I'll go tomorrow," shared Carlos, a 42-year-old who lost his job during the pandemic. As rent prices increase while wages have only grown slowly, by less than 20%, many families are forced to choose between paying for rent or meeting other essential needs like medical expenses or basic living supplies. For comparison, the average rent in Philadelphia is $1,522, while the minimum wage needed to afford a two-bedroom apartment is about $26 per hour. This means that a person working full-time at the minimum wage must work nearly 120 hours per week, or almost 3 full-time jobs, just to afford rent. So, when income fails to keep up with rising costs, is a stable life still achievable? And when housing becomes an elusive dream, who is responsible for ensuring that basic needs are met? In an economy that is supposedly growing, many are losing the basic right to a place to call home. They're not just facing the financial burden, they are also facing a future with no secure shelter. Number 7. Children without childhood or stability. In March 2025, the Pennsylvania Department of Education reported that more than 40,000 students across the state are living without stable housing. A dry statistic, but each number represents a child and a childhood left behind. In the heart of the United States, where the American dream begins in schools, there are children doing homework on motel beds, not desks. There are teenagers quietly standing in line at community kitchens, avoiding eye contact. There are children learning to fall asleep to the sound of engines rather than fairy tales. "I do better in school when I don't have to sleep in 3 different places in 1 week," said Jaden, 13 years old, who lived with his mother in their car throughout the winter. Many of them have to drop out of school because they have to move with their families constantly. For them, education is no longer a right, but a battle. They didn't choose this situation, but the system let it happen. According to statistics from Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children, 2025, only 1 in 3 children facing housing instability can maintain stable schooling for an entire year. Many children face delays in emotional and social development, losing direction for their futures very early on. Before learning multiplication tables, many children had to learn how to find food. Before they had the chance to grow up, they were faced with unnamed losses. A generation growing up amid confusion and cold, no place to call home, no sense of belonging. What can we do to prevent losing the future of today's children? Number 8. Migration's hidden struggles and tensions. Over the past 2 years, Pennsylvania has become an unintended destination for tens of thousands of Americans from Ohio, New Jersey, and even as far away as Texas and California. In 2025, California recorded the highest rent increase in the entire nation, forcing tens of thousands of residents to leave in search of more affordable living elsewhere. Many are leaving their previous homes due to soaring rent prices, job loss, or natural disasters, only to face an equally challenging reality. The support systems have reached their limits. A charity worker in Philadelphia sighed, "The waiting list for shelter beds now extends up to 2 months. This winter, we were forced to turn away hundreds of people, even though we knew they had nowhere else to turn." According to statistics from the year 2025, each shelter in Pennsylvania is currently operating at 98% capacity, while state funding has not kept up with the demand. Non-profits, which rely on seasonal donations, are left with nothing but apologies once the snow falls. Tensions have been building. Local residents believe that the influx of newcomers is contributing to higher living costs. Meanwhile, migrants feel as though they are being treated as second-class citizens without proper documentation, support, or a voice. And in the midst of this struggle, many are left without help. My son was denied shelter because we arrived late and didn't have the required documentation. He's been coughing every night, and I don't know where to take him, said Maria, a single mother from New Jersey, struggling to hold back tears. Pennsylvania is at a crucial crossroads. If policies are not adjusted soon, if the state does not offer more support instead of increasing barriers, the community may face further division from within. Because when everyone feels disconnected, no place can truly be called home. And as tensions grow, we have to ask ourselves, feeling the pressure of rising tensions. Drop a comment with the word support if you believe communities need to come together now more than ever. And stay tuned. You won't want to miss what happens next. Number 9. 3 stories. 3 lives, 1 social tragedy. Evelyn, 75 years old, had spent more than 4 decades working in a school cafeteria. Her small apartment used to be a peaceful home, until the new landlord raised the rent by 60%. Unable to afford the increase, and with her subsidy application lost, she now sleeps on the steps of the library, still holding tightly to her work ID badge as a reminder of the honest life she once lived. I used to live right, work hard, and now, in my final years, I can't even afford a room. Jalen, 16 years old, grew up in the foster care system, 6 moves in 7 years. He chose to sleep outside a gas station, less dangerous than the other places. His dream of becoming a barber now feels far out of reach. I used to think that after school I'd have a career, but now I only think about where I'll sleep for the night. Daniela, 50 years old, is a legal immigrant from El Salvador who worked as a certified caregiver in Pennsylvania for over a decade. When the nursing facility she worked at closed during a round of budget cuts, she was laid off without severance. Despite her legal status, limited English proficiency made it difficult for her to access unemployment aid or emergency housing. Now she sleeps on a church doorstep and searches for new work every day, carrying her expired employee badge like a reminder of the life she once had. I followed every rule. I paid taxes, but because I speak little English, I was invisible the moment I lost my job. According to research from the University of Chicago, about 40 to 53% of people who experienced homelessness worked during that year, although the work was not necessarily stable or provided a living wage. They are not outsiders. They once were pillars of society. What do they all have in common? No one gave up. No one chose to be without stable housing. But many were forced into it by a system that failed to protect them when it mattered most. These are not just 3 destinies. They are 3 mirrors reflecting a system that is turning its back on people who deserve support. Number 10. The truth hits home for us all. We used to think, losing a home happens to someone else, not to me, not to you. But in the year 2025, that boundary has disappeared. Just one unexpected medical bill, one car breakdown that you can't afford to repair, or one sudden round of layoffs is enough to push a middle-class family into a cycle of instability. In Pennsylvania, according to a report by Pew, 2023, in northeastern Pennsylvania, 38% of renters are spending more than half of their income on housing, a severe housing cost burden. In Philadelphia, a two-bedroom apartment costs about $2,300 per month. And to maintain a basic living standard for a family of four, the monthly living expenses exceed $6,500. But behind those numbers are real people. I still work regularly, but at night, I park in the darkest corner of the supermarket parking lot to sleep, said a nurse in Philadelphia. I'm not failing, I'm just trying to survive. The stories repeat. A clerk brushes their teeth in a public restroom. A family of 6 crammed into an apartment that was meant for only 2. A child doing homework in the back seat of a car because there is no desk at home. This is no longer someone else's problem. Because when the middle class can easily become the next victim, anyone, even you, could be next. The system no longer saves people, it's pushing them to the edge. And when we see that, silence is no longer an option. We live in a society full of untold stories. Every homeless person is not just a victim of deprivation, but a reflection of injustice and brokenness in the social structure. They once had families, jobs, and dreams, but now they face loneliness on the cold streets. So what role should we, each of us, play in this change? And what role should each of us play? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video makes you see things differently, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Roamkind so we can continue to bring untold stories. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Note, this video contains educational content intended to raise awareness about homelessness in the United States. All personal stories are anonymized or shared with permission. Viewer discretion is advised before drawing conclusions.